Good evening. Tonight we explore a Salt Lake Tribune article by Jana Reese, noting a fascinating shift in Latter-day Saint theology, the transformation of Satan from a fearsome cosmic force to a voice of self-doubt and temptation. In earlier Mormon teaching, Satan, also known as Lucifer, was a mighty adversary. He commanded a third of the host of heaven, wielded power over the elements, and marshaled demons to carry out his will. His domain encompassed the entire planet and its seats of power. But today, Satan's role seemed diminished. He has become a voice of chronic self-doubt, urging individuals to indulge in eating a second brownie and feeling unworthy. Recent General Conference talks reveal this shift in focus. Church leaders now emphasize Satan's efforts to undermine personal spiritual growth. He seeks to erode self-esteem and distract from spiritual paths and instill feelings of inadequacy. His attacks have become hyper-personalized, targeting individual self-improvement projects. This inward therapeutic turn marks a significant change. Historically, Satan was both an individual tempter and a cosmic force. Now his influence is primarily depicted as affecting personal spirituality, with little mention of his control over physical elements or broader societal impacts. This theological shift reminds me of some important considerations about the logical consistency of Satan's role in Mormon doctrine, some of which I covered in an episode of Mormon Discussion, number 275, Satan, the Opposition in All Things. But let's examine three critical points. First, premortal knowledge. In Mormon theology, Satan, or Lucifer, is a premortal spirit who, along with other spirits, knew God personally and understood his power and his plan. It's illogical to think that Satan, with firsthand knowledge of God's omnipotence and omniscience, would rebel, knowing that it was futile. Second, contradiction of goals. Satan's primary goal is to lead souls away from God and ensure their misery. However, Mormon doctrine also teaches that God's plan includes opposition in all things, and without it, there would be no growth. Thus, Satan's opposition indirectly supports God's plan, making his efforts counterproductive. And third and final, contradictory role. Satan is portrayed as the ultimate adversary, yet his existence and actions are integral to the fulfillment of God's plan of salvation, creating a contradiction where the villain's role is essential for the hero's success. Adding to this complexity, Lucifer has had the ability for thousands of years to listen in on God's prophets, to listen in on believing members of God's true church, as well as listen in to Christ himself during his mortality. And in doing so, he listened in on each of them, discussing Satan's importance and centrality to the plan of salvation. One could argue that the most effective way for Satan to thwart God's plan would be to simply step away from active engagement and retire, leaving God without an adversary, which means we actually couldn't even possibly be sure that Satan is still out there, carrying out his role, being the opposition in all things. In other words, Satan, as a necessary part of the plan, is absurd and irrational. Perhaps he had a retirement party in hell. Maybe he's sitting on a beach somewhere, enjoying a margarita, or at the very least, lounging in his study, having a strawberry daiquiri and watching porn.